What's up, y'all? It's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today we're going to be doing the DPS Warriors 6.1 BRF guide. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been asking me to do this, and so I do want to say right now, before we get into this, why it's taken so long. Okay, two reasons. Okay, one, because I'm lazy. Alright, besides that, theory crafting has changed a lot, and I didn't want to put out wrong information. Well, long story short. So the two things that we're looking at in this video are going to be stat choices first, and then we're going to be looking at talent choices, and for each mythic boss. Now, first thing is stat choices, because it's pretty simple. Now, a lot of this that I'm giving you guys is pretty much theory crafted, or not theory, well, theory crafted, and also sim crafted, and so it kind of is not entirely realistic in all ways, but I would recommend pretty much sticking with this to a pretty big extent. Now, the main thing that you really want to have is your crit chance, and past 25% crit chance, if you have the 4-piece bonus for BRF, crit becomes less valuable just because you hit the crit cap with the extra of the 4-piece bonus for, as I said before, the BRF warrior set. And so you do want to know that. Now, after 25% crit, you also want to get 14% haste. And the reason you want to do that is because 14% haste is what's going to get your Bloodthirst under a 4-second cooldown. Now, Enrage lasts for 8 seconds, and obviously you'll be able to get 2 Bloodthirsts in per Enrage to make sure that you have Enrage up as much as possible, which is very important. And also, the more Bloodthirst, the more Rage, also the more Bloodthirst crits, you get more Raging Blows. I mean, you guys see where I'm going here. Now, after that, Mastery. Now, Mastery, after 25% crit, whenever you have the 4-piece bonus, Mastery is actually pretty much your best stat pretty much all the time, and so you want to make sure that you have as much mastery as possible if you've got that 4-piece bonus. And the reason for that, and the 25% crit, and the reason for that is really that warriors have a huge burst phase. Like, whenever we have recklessness up with the 4-piece, like, we're gods, right? And the rest of the time we're just like idiots swinging our swords around and probably not critting Bloodthirst, right? And so it's very unfortunate, but that's the way it is, and that's why mastery is so important, because it allows you to capitalize even more on those big burst phases. And haste is important, and I'll include the long list of all the different stats. And as I said before, I got this off like MMO Champion, and I think that it's kind of correct, but just, I mean, it's up to you guys really to see how close you want to get to it. As a general rule, like, in my opinion, I basically go for crit mastery, and I try and meet that 14% haste cap. Multi-strike sucks, and I do want to explain preemptively before somebody asks the question, why did I say multi-strike was the second best stat? Well, that's because everybody said that, and there was an error with the sim crafting, how it, I guess, like, determines your top DPS. And so, just long story short, multi-strike is not very good, pretty much. Now, the next thing that I do want to look at is talents. Now, there are some basic talents that I want to look at for you guys. You want to have double time, in my opinion. It gives you the most utility and option for when you charge and how you move. And so definitely go with double time. You also want to go with Enrage Regeneration, and also Vigilance, and Sudden Death, in my opinion, is the best talent. Anybody that uses Unquenchable Thirst is a fucking moron, and anybody that uses Furious Strikes thinks that they're a robot, and they're not. And so anyway, guys, those are the main talents that you should be using regardless of what fight it is. Now, depending on, like, if, like, this is a single target fight or is it an AoE fight. Now, if it's an AoE fight, you want to be using Bladestorm, obviously, depending on how many targets there are. And also, there's a very it's a very peculiar thing at your level 100 talent, because there are a lot of different choices that you can make, and it really depends on the fight length. And so, as a general rule, because I'll kind of explain why. I'm trying to think of, like, a way to explain this to you guys. One of your best trinkets is the Vial of Convulsive Shadows, which drops from Iron Maidens, and what it does is it's an on-use trinket to proc for mastery, or to use for mastery. And if you have anger management, you can pretty much get your recklessness down to almost about 2 minutes, so it lines up with this trinket every single time, and so it makes it very good. And so if you have the Vial of Convulsive Shadows, anger management becomes extremely good, and Avatar is pretty much always better than Bloodbath if you do have this trinket, because it allows you to use Avatar every single other one. Because as a general rule, anger management takes your cooldowns down by about a third, 33%, and so Avatar is about a minute. Recklessness is about 2 minutes, etc. And so just so you guys kind of know, and a Bloodbath, and I don't even know how long Siegebreaker is. Siegebreaker would be somewhere around like 30 seconds, and Bloodbath would be, I think, 40 seconds. And so just as a general rule, that's how much anger management is going to take you down. And RNG can change that, but that's pretty much what to expect. Besides that, you definitely want to be also using Dragon's Roar for AoE. For single target, though, you always want to be using Stormbolt. And if you're ever really going to be doing more than one target, Dragon's Roar is very good. But if you're only doing straight single target like Gruul or Blackhand or something like that, you want to go ahead and go with Stormbolt. Now, besides that, the rest of it, and also Avatar and Bloodbath are pretty much neck and neck if you don't have the Vial of Convulsive Shadows or another 2-minute trinket, because honestly, any can fill that slot, but Vial is the one that you want to have. If you don't have Vial and you're not using anger management or anything like that, Bloodbath and Avatar are pretty much even. And so the first thing we're really going to be looking at, I'm going to try and give you guys each boss in, I guess, the order that people clear in. And the first one would be obviously Beastlord Darmac or Oregorger, but we're going to look at Beastlord first. Now, the main 3 talents you want to have here are obviously Dragon's Roar, because it's an AoE fight for the Pack Beast, Bladestorm, and you want to be using Anger Management for this if you, again, have the Vial of Convulsive Shadows. And I'm going to say that quite a few times in this video. Hopefully it doesn't get too annoying. But anyway, you want to be using anger management. And if you don't, like what I did whenever we first cleared it is I just used Ravager. And so you guys can use Ravager, but the Vial is going to be a little bit better if you, or sorry, the anger management is going to be a little bit better if you have the Vial. And as I said before, the two, both of them are going to work for you just fine, and the difference is going to be not really that big of a deal. And honestly, if you're killing mythic maidens, what are you trying to do? Like kill Beastlord for? It's not even a big deal. Now, next one obviously is going to be Oregorger. Now, Oregorger is a straight single target fight, so you want to be looking at getting Stormbolt, Avatar, and the last one. It kind of depends, because this is another thing with using anger management. Is if, as a general rule, if using anger management will not give you another recklessness within the fight duration, you don't want to be using it. And if it will, you do want to be using it. So if your fight duration lasts long enough to where you can get an extra recklessness into the boss fight, like 3 recklessnesses, I guess. I don't know, that's a tongue twister, and you guys know I'm really bad at those. 3 recklessnesses within the fight, you might want to go ahead and use the anger management. And if you don't, you want to be using Siegebreaker. Now, Siegebreaker is very good if your target is moving, and Ravager is very good if your target is standing still. General rule, very simple. Now, next one is going to be Hanz and Franz. Now, if you're playing arms on this fight, which is actually viable, you want to go ahead and go with Dragon's Roar and also Bloodbath. Now, I prefer to use Bloodbath over Avatar with arms, just because of the way that execute and all the other stuff. It seems like Bloodbath is a lot better as arms than it is as Fury. I'm not entirely sure why, but it does seem that way. And the last one, of course, is going to be either Ravager or Anger Management. Hanz and Franz, they stay together long enough to where you can use Ravager on them, but Anger Management is also pretty good, so you can get maybe another Recklessness in. And again, that goes back to, if you can get another Recklessness into the fight, you want to go ahead and use Anger Management most likely. And if you're Fury, you want to just go Dragon's Roar, Bladestorm, and Ravager, and again, Anger Management, if, that will make the difference between another Recklessness phase. Gruul, pretty much, it's obviously going to be a straight single target fight, so you want to go ahead and use Stormbolt, Avatar, and Anger Management, if, again, it will give you another Recklessness. If it will not give you another Recklessness phase, you go ahead and just use... honestly, I've seen people, I was looking through tons of logs, people are using Ravager, people are using Siegebreaker. Just do whatever, right? It's not really too big of a difference for either one. I guess it's a personal preference thing. Now, Flamebender is a joke, right? It's an easy boss, and it's also really easy to decide what talents you want to have. Each one, you want Dragon's Roar, Bladestorm, and Ravager. It's very simple. Ravager is very good for that fight, just because you can put it down, and the dogs are there, and it's killing the dogs, and you want to have as strong of a burst AoE as possible, and Ravager obviously is going to increase your burst AoE. And Kromog is actually the exact same, but I do want to say one thing about Kromog that's a little bit different for me personally. I use Avatar in Kromog. Well, I used to whenever we were doing it on progression, because Avatar lines up very well with each pillar phase, where you have to actually damage the pillars, and that's like the hardest part, really, in my opinion, of the fight. And so if you're having problems with the pillars, you might want to go ahead and use Avatar, but if you're really trying to just push out as much big dick DPS as possible, just go ahead and Bladestorm away. Now, Thogar is, this is, I guess, in my opinion, the first kind of hard boss, and you want to go ahead and use Dragon's Roar. And by the way, the Kromog talents are the exact same as the Flamebender talents, if I didn't explain that well enough. Thogar, you want to go ahead and use Dragon's Roar, Bladestorm, and this is another thing, because you kind of have to play this out yourself and decide, should you use Ravager or should you use Anger Management? Because sometimes, like the other warrior in my guild was using anger management and I was using Ravager, and the way that the fight turned out is all the ads at the end were all grouped up, and I had the chance to put down a Ravager and pretty much get the full duration damage out of it, and I did a ton of damage because I had the Ravager up and all those ads were up. But other people use anger management. Most people use anger management. And so I would recommend going ahead and just using anger management so you don't have to worry about putting down Ravager or anything like that. But again, it's kind of up to you. And both of those talents are going to be successful. Iron Maidens, and this is if you're arms, and I mean, you should be arms for Iron Maidens. It's a lot better because the fight really, I guess, like I'll talk about this for a second. The fight for Iron Maidens really only starts at 20%. Everything until then is just foreplay. It doesn't fucking matter. 20%, and it's just like as soon as he hits 20%, like Merrick hits 20%, which is usually the one you kill first. I mean, you just pop every fucking cooldown. You're just executing her until she's dead, okay? And so obviously, like in my what I do is I go with Dragon's Roar. I go with what do you call it? I do not use Bladestorm. Do not use Bladestorm for this fight. It's just not as good. Go ahead and use Bloodbath. That's what I use. And also, I guess I would use Ravager if I didn't have the Vial, and I would use Anger Management. Because I wrote down AM. I just want to tell you guys, I wrote down AM, and that's why I almost said Aura Mastery. Anger Management. For Iron Maidens if you do have the Vial or another 2-minute cooldown trinket. Now Blast Furnace is another one. We had like really shitty single target DPS. Right? I didn't really think that we'd have enough DPS for the last phase, and so I went ahead and I used Avatar instead of Bladestorm. But you probably want to be using Bladestorm. The other warrior in my guild was using Bladestorm, and he really outperformed me on that fight. And so honestly, guys, probably want to go ahead and use Bladestorm, and of course Dragon's Roar since it's a big AoE fight. And I would say since it's a constant AoE fight, go ahead and use Anger Management so you can get as many Bladestorms as possible, because Bladestorm is just going to do more damage than Ravager, and so that's pretty much where I'm going to, what I'm going to recommend. Now, Blackhand, the best spec that you really want to play is probably either Balance, Subtlety, or Beast Mastery. But unfortunately, a lot of you guys probably don't have alts, so you might be in there as Fury, but if you're lucky enough as I am, you're in Group 5 watching it on the stream. So if you are on Blackhand, and this is like really what I've read, and I was doing research, and so this is not even really my personal experience, but the best parses really come out of Stormbolt, Avatar, and Anger Management, or Siegebreaker. You don't want to be using Ravager for this fight, just because Blackhand is moving around, and so you're probably not going to get the full damage out of Ravager as you would want to, which is the only point Ravager really becomes better than Siegebreaker at all. And so those are the talents that you guys really want to have. And I know a lot of people have been asking me, like, what should I be using? And so hopefully this kind of answers your questions. And again, I know that if you look on like Warcraft logs, you can see people who are using different talents besides mine that I'm recommending that are also working. And guys, honestly, that's true. I mean, like, there are some obvious ones. Like, you want to be using Bladestorm on like the AoE fights, of course, right? But things that are more minimal, they're not really going to make too much of a difference depending on how you use them. And so it does come down to personal playstyle. So again, I do hope that this helped you guys. I know a lot of people have been asking me for it, and so hopefully this answers as many questions as possible. And I will do individual boss guides probably in the near future, but until then, hopefully this I guess fills the gap. So that's pretty much all I've got. Thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.